This is Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Pushing you to year-on-year progression. With your host, Ross McKinley.
Yo, Ross McKinley, Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Today's guest, a very special guest, a monk, would you believe? This is Arjuna, my good friend, and I met Arjuna several years ago, and I've actually stayed with him, worked with him personally. He taught me how to meditate, and I thought, who better than to come on, talk about mindfulness, meditation, all the benefits, and no doubt so much more. Arjuna, welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Fantastic. This has been one that certainly all the guests so far have been very much in the fitness and industry field. I've even had people talk about football. We've had loads of different guests, but this one from a selfish point of view is something where I feel like I can recap something that I really enjoy and something that I always feel on the podcast when I've been doing more and more videos. I've been talking about, probably as I've been doing it, meditation, mindfulness, gratitude, all these things, but I imagine I'm probably not explaining it as well as what you will. And I thought you would be the best person for the job. So as an introduction, mate, a little bit about you, where you are, what you've done, and why you're a monk, I guess. Where you go.
Just the small questions.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in North Yorkshire. I live with my family. I've got 2 kids and my wife. And I used to be an outdoor instructor. And the reason I'm a monk is simply because I saw how my ability, the best times of my life were when I was out of my mind. And, not literally insane, but out of my mind in a good way, where the worries, the doubt, the fear, just the small stuff just wasn't even a thing. I was so immersed in what I was doing that it was incredibly alive. And I'm sure lots of people had similar experiences or glimpses of that. But it was something that I wanted more of, because I looked at myself and I looked at my clients, and if I could talk to them and get their heads in the right place, the bodies followed. Yeah. But if their head was a mess, nothing worked, right? You could have a 6-year-old girl and she'd just be flying down some huge abseil, and yet some huge hulking rugby player, if he was terrified of the height, it wouldn't matter how much of strength or skill he had. It was all about the brains, the mindset. And so I wanted to train that, to work out how to use it better, to become better. So yeah, that's essentially my background. That's why I became a monk.
And what does that mean then now? So your practice is ascension, isn't it? So that's your form of meditation. So yeah. For the men listening, even just on a very basic level, what is meditation? Why should we do it? What is it? And just starting there first, what would you say?
Why should you do it? Well, it has a couple of uses, I'd say. And the first is to relax, to switch off, to forget, to not let the day carry over into the night, to be so present you can be with where you are. That kind of switching off is a kind of focus. So it's being able to pay attention at one thing at once and not letting intruding thoughts come in. Yeah. So it's powerful in that, because we all have doubt, we all have worry, we all have anger and frustration. And it's really, how can I train my mind to focus on the one thing and forget all the annoying stuff that I have no control over? Yeah. The Alcoholics Anonymous have a prayer: give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah. And I think that's a powerful roadmap for living extremely well. And we don't know how. We get so stuck with all the injustices and the frustrations and all the stuff, and it makes us angry or anxious, and we're a bit timid when it comes to moving forward too. We sort of wait to get ready or prepare, and we never actually take those small steps and get going. So for me, meditation is that. It gives you serenity, but also courage. It gives you relaxation, but also focus. It gives you peace, but also the wisdom to do your life better. We're great doers, right? We're busy. And yet, as the cliche goes, but it's true, we're human beings at the end of the day. And when we forget that that's when things start to fall apart. And we do stuff or think stuff that we regret or feel guilty for, or, you know, we're not as kind as we could be. We're not as, you know, I think for men, it's we want to be honorable. You know, our character is really important to us. Mm-hmm. But I think that takes regular practice and development, and meditation, for me at least, is a big part of that.
Yeah. I think something I'm always preaching is maximizing everything we have, getting the most out of our lives, our training, our mindset. And I think meditation is maybe something that helps us do that, helps us be more present, because we can focus on enjoying the present moment, I guess, and enjoying the process, as opposed to just living either in the past, like you were saying, anxious or angry or still holding a grudge or whatever it is. And equally, not living in the future and thinking about, I'll be happy when I do this. I'll be happy when I get to this certain weight, for people listening to the podcast, or when I earn so much money, or whatever it is. It helps you think about just the here and now.
Yeah. And you know, I've been reading a lot about performance psychology, and just that whole thing of, when you're so focused on the goal, you don't perform as well. When you're focused on the one thing that you can do in front of you and keep doing that, then the goal is a certainty.
You obviously initially notice that, which is interesting, how everyone comes to, you almost go through your apprenticeship in life, or these jobs you have earlier on, and it makes you realize what you like doing. And maybe for me, it's helping people in fulfillment in that role, and it's through the vehicle of transformations, and you give them confidence through that. And for you, it's been, you started off with your snowboard and your outdoor activities in New Zealand and everything, and then you went from there. And then that you realized, actually, if I can get people's mindset right, like you said, if I can get them to concentrate and they're more present, look at the difference in results. How can we transfer that over to other areas? Which is really cool, like how it adds up, and what makes you realize kind of what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And just the sense of what floats my boat.
Yeah.
And I think people are often looking for a bit of purpose as well. You know, what's the point of all this? And what am I, even people in their 40s or 50s going, man, I'm still kind of not really sure what I love to do or why I'm here. And
okay, so that's a good one, and a good question. So for the men listening, that maybe some of them might have never meditated before, some of them might have tried it. Would you say the benefits, like we said, it gives you that pause, if you like, it gives you that space, it helps you not hold on to stuff everyone just mentioned, but also, do you find, in terms of purpose, how would you say that it relates into that? Or is it, maybe it's not meditation, but the whole practice and the mindfulness and everything alongside it, would you say that helps with purpose?
Yeah, I think it kind of just clarifies what's important to you. Mm. You get to understand yourself on a much deeper level than just being lost in the past or the future or the worries or the doubts. You kind of get beneath that and go, this really is something that I'm interested in or passionate about, or I want to go further with. And just self-understanding. I think, you know, the ancient Greeks had a saying, know thyself. And I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do, is realize that you get to define your life. You get to define your version of success. And so many of us are kind of following a well-worn path, and that's not necessarily the path that's for us. So through these kind of internal practices, you kind of shine a light and go, actually, this is what's important.
Yeah.
So
where would you say, what would you say in terms of where to start? So for your practice is ascension. So that's, to clarify, that's a type of meditation or a form of meditation. That's what you teach. Where would you say people should start for just, where should they start? Whether it's meditation, mindfulness, what would your advice be?
Yeah. Well, if they were game, come along, spend a weekend with me. Just jump in.
That's what I done. So for everyone listening, I touched on it at the beginning, that is what I done. So years, it was probably how we talked about this before we started, Arjuna. It was probably 5-6 years ago.
Probably, yeah.
So I was working with, I mentioned him before, I was working with Paul Moore, one of my good friends. He was my mentor for a lot of years when I was younger. And I think I just started meditation because I thought it was like something that everyone else was doing. But I noticed a massive, massive difference. And it's a bit of a cliche, and everyone says, but you notice when you're not doing it. You notice how you react to things. You notice that you maybe get a little bit more annoyed, or you just react differently. And I feel actually the next question I've got for you actually ties into this really nicely. But yeah, that's what I done. I went and met Arjuna and spent 2 days with him, because I think we first met at a seminar or one of Paul's events, and you came and taught with. And actually, we've spoke. Arjuna's going to come and do some stuff for the men in the inner circle and the lads that work with me. We're going to get you in to do some stuff privately with us. I think some videos, which I think will be great. But
yeah,
would you say nowadays apps, things like Calm, Headspace? What would your advice be on stuff for that, mate? Where would they start? Someone wants to start meditating today. What would you say? What would the practice?
All of those are great. All of those are wonderful. But you can go on. There's an app called Insight Timer, because all of those will have a free bit, but then you have to pay monthly. And if you're a bit tight or a bit short of cash, then go to Insight Timer, because they've got thousands of different meditation teachers with different meditations, and I think they're all free.
Yeah.
So you can just get on there and surf to your heart's content till you find something that clicks for you.
I've got that one.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I think that's key, is just finding a teacher that explains things in a way that you can get it and understand it and do it.
Brilliant. So that's a really good point. Actually, I didn't think to ask you that. Would you say that a guided meditation, so the difference between a guided meditation is it's someone like Arjuna or whatever you're listening to on your phone, someone guiding you through the process and giving you cues and maybe telling you about what to think about or how to breathe? Would you say that's a better place to start for most people?
Yeah, I think so. It's just nice to have someone to remind you, and the more you practice, the more independent you become. You know, you kind of get a sense of what's right. Am I doing it correctly? And you kind of, the more you do it. My teacher loves to say, you never master meditation. Meditation masters you. And so really consistency, just doing it regularly, kind of shows you how to do it. But having said that, having a guide, having someone to remind you is so useful. And
how long would you say each day, Arjuna? How long would you say daily? And would you say a certain time?
I'd absolutely say daily. I'd say maybe do 10 minutes a day. That would be wonderful. You know, if you really can't. And the whole point of meditation is not to change your mind, but to step back and see it differently.
And look at what your mind's saying.
Yeah.
If you like.
And people tell me, I can't meditate for 10 minutes. It's too hard. And what they're actually doing is they're fighting, they're battling, they're trying to tear their mind apart or shut it up, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so I think anyone can do 10 minutes, especially guided. If you're finding that you can't, it's no deal to back off, really. But back off in yourself, back off in time, and back off and take the pressure off. You know, there's nothing to do, nowhere to go. You're really just sitting, relaxing, paying attention to one thing. You're not trying to stop your mind. You're not trying to get anything to go away. You're just sitting in this without judgment and breathing, or focusing on a phrase, or et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I always remember one of the things when I was learning with you, and when you used to come to the events, is that I used to, and anyone who knows me still now, I still really am. People will be surprised, but I'm not a big fan of mornings. I hate getting out of bed. Everyone says every day, but I really struggle in the mornings for some reason. The first hour of my day, I'm a different person. I'm like a little monster. I do not like getting up in the morning. But one of the things I used to always say was, I can remember both when I come and visited you in person, I stayed with you, and also at the events, I found a lot of the time that I would fall asleep when I was meditating. And I just remember you said it's because you need to sleep. I think there's just such a relaxed answer of, if you fall asleep, it's because you needed to sleep. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because I used to get very annoyed with myself. I used to think it's because I can't do it. I fall asleep. Now when I meditate, probably because I'm sleeping a little bit more, I'm a little bit older, I'm a little bit wiser maybe. Now I don't fall asleep. I'm much more present. I've learned it. But in the beginning, sometimes the answer is just that actually you are not sleeping enough and you're just going to fall asleep. And I always remember telling you, thinking you were going to give us some wise and wonderful answer. And I just really, really, really boldly remember just being like, it's because you need to sleep. And I was like, oh.
Come on. Give me something else.
Yeah, it was funny. I can remember that now. Yeah, brilliant.
But how true is that? I mean, exhaustion is a major thing, and so one of the things that many people will have when they close their eyes is they'll just fall asleep. And it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means that meditation is giving you what you need.
Yes,
and that's one of the other rules, is it will give you what you need, not necessarily what you want, and that's important too. That lack of control is something that's missing from our doing busy lives. There we're in charge, we're making decisions, we're doing. And meditation really is just sitting and allowing whatever wants to happen, which is a complete 180 from the way we usually do things. So it may take a little bit of time just to relax into that.
Fantastic. Brilliant. I'm really enjoying this. This is great. One of the resistance to meditation, Arjuna. So again, going from my own experience, something when I've spoken to the lads that I coach, and something I think maybe men might not want to say, or particularly people that see themselves as maybe quite not aggressive, but maybe people who have high energy, maybe it's got a little bit of a temper and stuff. And certainly something I used to think when I was younger was, I don't want to lose my personality. It sounds weird, but like that was one of my objections, a little bit of resistance I had to it was, if I meditate, it'll chill us out, it'll change who I am. Yeah. What would you say to that?
No, it makes you more of who you are.
Yes.
It does. Because so often, and I hear that all the time, I don't want to lose my edge. I don't want to lose my aggression. I want to be sharp and on point. And people aren't. They're kind of pushing the upper limits of intensity. They're boiling over at about an 8 or a 9, and it doesn't take much for just to explode. There's not a lot of room in the system.
Yeah.
So for me, meditation allows you to step back so that you calm down a little bit, but you can focus directly more effectively on the things that you care about. And that wisdom, that clarity becomes really, really strong. You get to see where you're fighting battles you have no control over, and you're wasting time. And so really it all the self-doubt, all the thoughts in your head that I should be like this, all the images and the masks that we believe we have to wear, all that stuff just starts to drop away, and you, for want of a better word, you become more authentic. You become more nothing to prove, nothing to hide. You really I really don't care, and I'm going to do these things, but it's not to prove myself to anybody. It's because I want to, not because I need to.
Yeah.
And so it's really a big shift between the way many people, the way I used to live life, trying to prove myself all the time to other people. I had a lot to hide because I was ashamed of it or thought it wasn't worthy of bringing out in public. All of these things, constantly judging myself. I'd go through an interaction and like this or anything, and then afterwards, just in my head, just anxious about what I did wrong and rehearsing and replaying it, and it was just horrible. Just no peace, no ease in my own skin, and really, this practice is just A, yes, mellowed me out, but B, enabled me to have no handbrake, really.
Yeah.
So it's what you see is what you get. It's not. I'm not trying to present an image. I'm not trying to, as I said, nothing to prove, nothing to hide. I think.
Yeah. I think that for me, the highs or the positive energy or the good stuff is still just as enthusiastic, and I'm just as passionate. The biggest change for me has been that I'm not as reactive. So particularly like when I was younger, I sound like I'm right terrible here, but I was very reactive. But I was kind of like, I used to think like, oh, there's no positive without negative. This is why I'm also got so much energy on camera, and why I can do these videos, and why I've got confidence to step up and do this. And I'm like this in the gym, and I can do that. This is just part of that. This is part of me that I need to. There's going to be sometimes where I snap at people, or I lose my temper, or whatever. And actually, meditation has helped me calm that side of things down. And it just the best thing a lot of teachers say, but it gives you that pause, doesn't it? So when something happens, instead of reacting straight away in whatever way, it gives you a moment to kind of have a bit more empathy, or just kind of think about the situation. And sometimes, I'll be honest, there's been times where I've paused and thought about it, and I've still done it anyway, and I've still got annoyed anyway. But it just makes you not quite as reactive, I think.
Yeah, and it's not unconscious. It's not a blind reaction. Yeah, it's not red mist that goes boosh and you explode.
Yeah, it gives you that pause in between.
Hey, I found out today that I think it's the Latin, the root of the word hero means to protect. And I love that because it's I think, and maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of men kind of see, maybe they're fathers or leaders or whatever, but they see themselves in that role of wanting to be better.
Yes.
Wanting to be heroic.
Yeah.
And kindness and compassion is a big part of that protection type deal. Yeah. The hero isn't doing it just for themselves. They're doing it for everybody beneath them in their care. Yeah. And when we lose our tempers, and when we get angry and frustrated and all these things, we do things that aren't heroic. You know, I heard someone describe it as like that coffee meme, do stupid things faster with more energy. Yeah. That's what happens. And that's not, on reflection, 90% of the time, it's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
On the 10%, as you say, you go, no, this is important to me. I need to say this. But
yeah, and there's sometimes where, you know, where something might happen, like you say, where you do need to stand up for yourself, or you do need, you know, you're going to have an emotional reaction. And like you say, it is important to you. And at that point, you'll just be more aware that you're making that decision. But I think a lot of men and a lot of people in general, the can't, or the struggle to, like you mentioned right at the beginning, one of the reasons to have the difference between night and day, the gap, or to be able to separate their work life from their home life. And for a lot of men that work with me and the men listening and watching, we sometimes use, I always say, or in fact, Paul taught us, there's different ways to reset yourself, or to give yourself a mental refresh and give you that break, if you like. There's sleep, there's the gym, and then there's meditation. And I think that for most men, letting out aggression, whether it's through going boxing, sparring, through lifting weights, they see that as the refresh. If you ever have a problem and you go on a walk, you go on a run, you go at the gym, all of a sudden you have that little bit of a refresh and a change in your mindset. As people say in the gym, you go into the void, you have the tough sets where your ears ring and you have these crazy sets and you come out of it and it's like, it's almost like you've done a little bit of a mini meditation, but that's because you're creating the same thing that we're talking about. You're getting super present, you're blocking everything else out, and you're practicing that skill. When I realized I could do that through something else, it meant I didn't have to go and put bloody 140 kilos on my back or whatever and lift heavy weights every day all the time whenever I had a problem. When I realized I could just be doing something every day that would help us with that, I was like, actually, why aren't I doing this? I'm going to get so much more out of life. And that certainly is something that a way to look at it, because a lot of men, particularly if you're listening to this and you haven't meditated or you haven't got into that practice and you're kind of wondering why, but it's maybe the same as someone who doesn't see the mental benefits of pushing hard at the gym, of achieving a PB in the gym. That if you've equally the same, if you've never recorded your workout before, if you've never had structure, had a goal and got that sense of overcoming a challenge in the gym, then it would be very hard to explain to someone who's working in an office who's never been to a gym before, this is why you need to do it, this is how it makes you feel. And I think that to give meditation a chance to people listening, it's different, but that's what I would liken it to from my world, if you like. That's the similar sort of benefit that you're going to see, but you've got to be doing it and practicing it to ever have a chance of it. I can't show you without you doing it.
Yeah. The unique thing about meditation is it's one of the reasons it turns a lot of people off. It's just you and your mind, which when you sit down, you just realize sometimes what a mess it is. You know, what an ugly place what a beautiful place it can be, but an ugly place it can be too. And for me, it's that learning to have a different relationship with your thoughts. So the voices aren't behind you anymore. They kind of come forward, and the voices in your head, all of a sudden you can see them. You don't have to like them, but now when you see them, you're fully aware of what the voices are telling you. And we all have voices in our head. You don't have to be crazy, but they're there, and now you have choice. You know, I see why when I have this certain situation, or my wife or my partner says something, this is why I respond. You get this self-awareness, and you go, cool. I know that's a trigger. Next time it happens, I'm going to be more aware and walk into it and do something different, choose to be better.
Yes.
And the gym physical exercise is great, but I know a lot of guys who use it to punish themselves, to really, to forget almost. It's almost like drink or the iron.
Yes.
And
You're right.
More. And I'm not going to psychoanalyze, but maybe David Goggins is a good example of that. He pushes hard and he's super inspired. I listen to his books and what he does, but I'm just wondering, man, that guy pushes so hard.
Yeah.
What? And anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sometimes people maybe rather than try to learn about that voice inside your head or the reactions or triggers that you have, sometimes I think people try to almost beat it into submission, whether it's with or make it to escape it, whether it's through, like I said, training really, really hard in the gym, but sometimes you can overdo that, which again, it's why it's important that you have a program, you have a practice. The same thing, we have a practice in the gym. We don't just go in and decide that we're going to do stupid stuff until we're in a different place. There should be some structure to it, like there is with practice and meditation. But I think some people, you're right, I think whether it's through drink or drugs or whatever it is in life, or the gym, there's loads of ways, but sometimes it's realizing what you're using said thing for. Are you using it to become more present, to get that mental change, or are you using it to escape? And I imagine that's very, very common for a lot of people. This is, to clarify, Arjuna, and I know that it is, but this is for everyone, isn't it? It's not just, it isn't, sometimes I think maybe people think, oh, it's for business owners, it's for people who are already stressed, it's for people who, like I mentioned before, maybe have a bad time. Meditating, this lifestyle, if you like, it's for everyone.
I think if we could somehow package this and put it in a pill and sell it in Boots, you'd never be able to buy it because it constantly be sold out, right?
Yeah.
If you could put the effects, but it's just that people don't understand the process or how to do it, and mainly it's because we're such doers and such creative people so often, and such controllers, and this is the direct opposite of that. Yeah. It's just sitting receptive, absolutely non-controlling, and so it's saying meditation's not for me, I think, is like someone saying sleep's not for me. It's, of course it is. We just got to find the way that suits you. And if there are guys who are trying this and perhaps when they close their eyes there is a level of agitation, or the minds are just too busy, then just keep them open. You know, one really cool trick, I'll talk you through it and it'll take 20 seconds, is you just find a point in front of you. Maybe it's the middle of my forehead, maybe it's your keyboard or whatever. But then, so you're gazing at that point and then open your vision. So you're just noticing the sides of your vision as well. So you're just letting all the color, the texture, the lights come in. And as you're doing that, just relax. Relax your brain, relax your shoulders. And if it's easy for you, notice the sense of space that's behind you as well. So noticing your location in the room or the vehicle or wherever you might be. So in that, just a little shift of your vision, there's a lot of calm. There's a lot of peace maybe. You're very attentive, just aware of the quality of now. And so if you're doing your practice and you're finding eyes closed too much, just stay still, but engage that with your eyes open. So,
fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. So I want to move on and talk about your book a little bit, because I think it relates into your new book. So I think it's really going to help a lot of the men when it comes to transformations. But before we do, just to sum up on that. So daily meditation, 10 minutes a day, insight timer, calm, or I will be putting Arjuna's information and details in the links and comments below, so you can always get in touch with Arjuna. And like I said, the men that are working with me, he's going to be coming in or coming online and doing some work with us in the groups, because I think this is really, really important. Something that I'm very passionate about. You can probably tell I've probably spoke less in terms of my speaking and just listen to Arjuna more so than any other guest. I've just asked him questions and just shut up. So would you agree with that, mate? Would you say that's a good place to start, to just daily Yeah.
Brilliant. Awesome. And if you didn't do it, that whole thing, if you didn't do it yesterday, do it today. You know.
Awesome. Cool. So your book. Talk us through it. Give us a bit of an introduction to it, and then I've got some questions for you.
Yeah. Well, it really was a lockdown book, and I had a new baby, so it's concise and short. There's not a lot of fat in it. I picked up a few books over lockdown again, and I was just reading, and they're enjoyable. They have one good idea, and you go, man, this is a 300-page book for one idea. Yeah. And I didn't want that to be the case. I don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah.
But the idea behind this one is that when I was an outdoor instructor, I realized I was living something that I called the donut life.
Yeah.
Where I had everything. I had my version of success. I had a house by a lake. It was surrounded by 3 sides by mountains that I could run up. In the winter, I would drive buses up the ski field and go snowboarding all day long.
Yeah.
In the summer, I'd kayak as much as I could. I had money galore. I had really good friends, really good, the best life possible. And what was confusing was I'd made it, but I felt empty. The more I chased, it felt like the less I had. And I was like, this is weird. I feel like our culture says, gain these things, then you'll feel satisfied and fulfilled. And I couldn't work out why satisfaction was fleeting, why it didn't last longer than a few days. I'd go on a great adventure and I just feel so good for 4 or 5, maybe 2 weeks. And then the worries, the doubt, the stuff would come back.
Yeah.
And so I realized that there was probably 2 parts to us. There was sort of a more spiritual, a deeper dimension. I call it spiritual, but it's whatever that means to you. But there is a source of contentment, a source of appreciation, of not only chasing more, but the ability to find enough, which is the title.
Yeah, chasing more, finding enough.
Yeah, and that's so important, because you see rich people all over the place who their lives are a mess, but they've got more money than they know what to do with. Mm-hmm. But they just, you read interviews and they just sound so dissatisfied, or they're just wrecking relationships, or they're burning everything down. It's like, what's wrong? You have success, but it feels like you have nothing.
Yeah.
And guys like, Aubrey Marcus, the podcaster, the guy on it, amazing guy, but he said he used to just have this constant anxiety that I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
This constant anxiety that I'm not achieving, that he isn't enough.
Yeah.
There's this sort of, the donut life is, it doesn't matter what you have, there's something missing in the middle. And so often in our world, we're told, choose. Do you want ambition and performance and kicking ass, or do you want to go live in a cave and have a sort of a more spiritual, content, peaceful life?
Yeah.
What's it going to be? Either or. Giving up the world, give up the fun stuff, the possessions, the cool things. And I was like, well, I love both. I love those feelings of the pure contentment when I'm sitting around the fire with my boys after a great, an incredible kayaking trip. It's that the simple things, a warm meal, a comfortable pillows, like this is all I need. And yet more, and chasing things and developing my skills and making more money and, all these things, and having cool possessions, a great car, that appealed too. And so I was like, well, surely we can combine the two. and that's really what the book is about, is saying that, you can have both. That it's important that you have both. Otherwise, you'll be dissatisfied. You live half a life.
Brilliant. Awesome. I think something I mentioned before to the lads, I've probably butchered the terminology and the story, but that hedonic treadmill. So the idea that when you, as you mentioned, you're chasing a goal, and then when you get it, you're kind of just then thinking about the next goal, and you actually don't have very much time, if any, just enjoying it and being present. So obviously the meditation, that's what the book's about as well, is how we're, and I've wrote actually down some quotes in the book, and one that stood out was, you can only stop doing when you are done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people feel like that, but they're never done. They're like, right, and it's like, the easiest one for me is when men work with me, maybe it's your 28-day challenge, your 12 weeks, whatever phase it is. When you get to a fat loss phase, you get the end and you're shredded and you've got abs, and the next thing is, well, I want more abs, so I want to be leaner, I want to have more muscle. And don't get us wrong, and again, this is why I thought it was so good to talk to you on this one, is that you're right, you should want to do more, in that you want to improve yourself, but also you need to be happy with where you're at right now. And I think that's the important thing, is don't be living waiting on, I'll be happier when the next time I do this, or I'll be happier when the easiest example outside of what I do, but is probably in terms of business and monetary goals, is that everyone who's ever ran a business themselves, or even at work, most people have targets, but as soon as you hit the target, you just set another target normally. Like, it's never like, I want to earn this much money a year. But then when you do it, you don't like really say, oh, that's brilliant, or even spend much time appreciating the moment. You just feel like, I've done it. That means I could have done more. All of a sudden, you're not actually like, you're just onto the next thing, and you never. I think that's a very dangerous like sort of conundrum to get into is continually just looking ahead. What would you say about that, mate? How would, relating it to the guys I work with in that transformations, if you like, what would your advice be to help them? Yeah, to help them to be more present.
Yeah. Well, I think talking about money, I think there's two aspects to money. There's the number in your bank account, but then there's the feeling of abundance or feeling of freedom. And they're two different things. You can have millions and millions, but no abundance, no freedom, no sense of ease. You can be stressed and anxious and constantly pushing. So always realize that there's always two things to everything. You can have an incredible body, but you can probably have an incredibly unhealthy physiology. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really, I think for me, it was looking at all these things that I was chasing and going, hang on, what do I really want here? Am I chasing a goal because everybody else is? Or am I chasing this because I really want it? Am I chasing this because I need it? Because when I get it, then I think I'll feel better about myself. It's going to increase my self-esteem, which it does. Mm-hmm. But am I relying on the outside to prop me up? Am I relying on relationships, cars, money, adventures, new shoes to make me feel like I'm something? Or do I have that sort of sense of self-esteem and respect for myself? Nothing to prove, nothing to hide, once again, for myself, not because I'm doing it for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that reckoning of why. Why am I doing this? Why am I chasing this? Is this something I'm really excited? Is this something I really want to do? Or could I be happy with just less and then therefore put more energy into some other part of my life?
Yeah.
Because every part of life has a trade-off, isn't it? If I chase this, I've got to say no to that.
Yeah.
And it's got to be, for me, that sure, there's going to be times of intense activity, but generally you want to look at something that can be maintained, something that's easy, that you enjoy, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so asking yourself why. Is this something that's really important to me? Or is it something that I've kind of taken on and haven't really examined?
Yeah. I think that's why it's always good to have some time always looking at you for in training, relating this to training, is having a clear goal and not just doing a cut or trying to get leaner in summer because everyone else is, and not just trying to build muscle or doing a big bulk because everyone else is. You need to look at what your physique needs and what you enjoy in training, and then pick based on that. That's something I'm saying to the lads all the time, is pick what you think. And they'll sometimes say, well, what do you think I should do? It's like, I can give you advice based on your physique. Like, looking at you, I can say, right, well, we need to bring up this area, we need to bring this. But actually, you've got to really look in yourself a little bit and say, do I really want, and a great word you said there, I always say sacrifices in terms of what they want to sacrifice, but I actually think a much, much better way of putting it, and I'm going to try to do in the future, what you said there was trade-offs. So instead of saying, what am I willing to sacrifice, maybe look at when you're trying to change your physique, when you're trying to change your bank balance and create that abundance that Arjuna talked about, or whether even your meditation, putting time into that every day, what's the trade-off and are you willing to do it? And then looking at, well, if I don't do it, here's what I'm possibly going to get, or whatever. If I do it, this is it. And sometimes as well, I think for looking at more the lads or people that are maybe longer in the game of training, is that the more advanced you get and the more further down the line, you have to realize that you don't take the same approach as when you're a beginner. And when you're chasing a goal initially, you can go all out. You're happier with more trade-offs because you've never had that sense, like you said, the fulfillment or the confidence that you get from achieving the goal. In the beginning, you're so hungry for that you're willing to take more trade-offs. But with time, and everyone's going to be different, we should be refining what those sacrifices or trade-offs are and trying to have ones that suit us more personally. For me, for example, with training, I'm happy to train 2, sometimes even 3 times a day. I love training. I would rather do that all the time. But I also like to still be able to drink on a weekend. I eat out with my friends quite a lot. I don't drink every weekend, but I like to be able to do it. I like the freedom in that. Now, for some other people, they could probably think of nothing worse than getting up and doing cardio in the morning and training 2 more times during the day. They might really enjoy that one gym session, but training more might ruin the enjoyment for them. And I had to find that out myself. For me, I would rather train a little bit more than miss the social event, if you like. That's the trade-off that I'm happy with. But you've got to be willing also to then do it. It's no good saying, and this is really much more specifically to fitness, but sometimes I think there's a bit of a disconnect where people say they're happy with a sacrifice or with a trade-off, and they're saying that, yeah, well, I'll do the cardio, or I'll do the extra training. I'm willing to do what it takes. But then actually when it comes down to it, they're not, and then they get disappointed with their lack of results because they've been doing the other things. They've been doing, like you said, the other side of the agreement. They've had the meal. They've spent time with their loved ones. They've had the biscuits at work or whatever. And that's all fine and can be done. But you've got to say, are you willing to do the trade-off? Are you willing to do the extra cardio, to do the training or whatever? And that's, I love, like I say, I flicked through the book earlier and had a look at Arjuna's book. He's been very kind to send us it over. And this concept of actually you can have both, for anyone that knows me, is actually something that I'm very, very much a believer in. I think you should maximize everything. You know, the title in the podcast and intro is year-on-year progression, and that's in all areas. But to do that, you have to look at yourself and say it, and it'll change all the time for those you listen. It's not what I'm happy to do this summer is based on who I am this summer. And next year, it might be something completely different. I might have more friends. In the future, at some point, you might have kids, whatever it is, different job requirements. Your sacrifice and those trade-offs are going to change, and you have to be self-aware enough and reflective enough to accept that and then make decisions based on it. So that's awesome, mate. That's a really good, I'm happy that you bring that up. That's class.
Yeah, because I'm exactly the same. You know, I try and do something every day because I just feel really good when I work out or run or whatever. Yeah. And I can go really hardcore strict on my diet and get certain physique, and you know, that's cool. But you know what? I really enjoy just a couple of beers on the weekend. And, you know, I would prefer a slightly more middle ground than all out on one thing or nothing.
Yeah.
But that's because I know myself. I know that that's important to me. But will that change, as you said? Yes, of course it will change. And we'll see. And I think that's part of the beauty of this kind of inner understanding is like, it seems like today or this season or this part of my life, I want to work on that or this. And spot on. What you just said.
Brilliant. The next one, the final one I've got for you on the book, something that I really like, was the paradox that your ability to choose more is only amplified through finding enough.
Yeah.
So would you say that? So I'll read it once more so everyone can take it in. So the paradox that your ability to chase more is only amplified through finding enough. So is that, how can we practice that, I suppose, is what I'm asking. Is it gratefulness? What is it? How can we work on that, and how can we accept it and use it in our favor?
Yeah. I would say that's a great first start is gratitude. I mean, anyone with little kids know if your little kid gets given something and they go, is that it? What? you want to take it away from them.
Yeah.
And yet if someone goes, oh, this is incredible, thank you so much, you're like, absolutely, how can I help you to get you more? You know, and I think life with a capital L works a lot like that, is that when you really appreciate, enjoy what you have, what is here, what you're surrounded in, then it's far easier to build. That's a far solid foundation to get more.
Yeah.
Because often we look at what's missing, lacking, or broken. We so focus on what we wish. Yeah. And that what you focus on grows. And so you're sort of trying to build something from emptiness. And that is a very tough place because you're so focused on what's wrong and where you should be, and you forget where you are. You know? And so I guess to explain it in other ways is just simply smell the roses along the way. Yeah. Focus on the one small step in front of you. Enjoy the process. You know, trust the process. All of these things that coaches will tell you. Yeah. But they tell you them because they're true. Is that, set awesome, big, lofty goals, but break it all down into this, to this moment in time, to what you can do. Yeah. And that's what I mean, because chasing more without having with having emptiness is really hard. And it's this idea that contentment equals complacency, that if I'm content, then I'll just put the brakes on. But for me, contentment shows me really what's important to me, that I'm doing stuff because I really want to. And anything, that kind of motivation is pure, is rocket fuel, versus that feeling like I need to. I need to fill this hole of emptiness. And so, contentment is not complacency. It gives you a more honest version of you and a more authentic way of living your life. So
brilliant.
That's what I meant by that paradox statement.
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, I thought it was really good. I wanted to kind of go on. Well, I always think that with everything, I've touched a lot of times on the different forms of motivation, extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation. I think that initially those, like you said, those lofty goals, that holiday, the event, or the thing in the future, or how you want to be, that'll always get you started. And that might give you the end goal and the reason to put the planning in, or to look at what you're doing day to day. But then once you've set that, you can't live in the future anymore. You then need to be thinking about the intrinsic side of things and enjoying the process day to day, so that when you achieve that goal, you've become the person that you want to be along the way. You haven't just got there and you've achieved it and you kind of feel a bit hollow. You need to learn to enjoy the process and all the little parts along the way, because otherwise you'll get there and you'll achieve it, and then you'll just do the same thing again, and you're only ever going to be happy on the one day when you've got that event, or you've got the photo when you're in shape, or whatever it is. And instead, it's much more beneficial, it's much more fulfilling to learn about yourself and about the journey and all the little things that you can do along the way that actually give you that sense of fulfillment while you're working towards the goal, as opposed to just the final event, if you like. I think that's really, really important for what I do with people relating about that, because so many men or so many people always focus on just the photos or the end result. And particularly when lads go into a muscle gain phase and they're trying to build muscle, that's so difficult mentally for a lot of people, because they're effectively going away from their ideal. They look lean, they had abs, but to get any better than that, to build their physique again and get stronger and better, that's actually not your strongest, healthiest position, is when you're shredded and when you've got loads of veins and you're looking vascular, and at the end of the diet, you're probably your weakest. It's not good for your natural testosterone levels. People are probably not in a really good state, but because it looks good to others, they're like, oh, I want to stay here for as long as I can. It's actually detrimental to do so. You need to say part of the journey and looking your best is actually going the other way in muscle building and accepting that and looking at the positives along the way, that they've got better strength in the gym, that they've got more energy, their libido will be better, they've got more calorie allowances to go and spend time with their family and friends, and all these other positives that they might not have had on the other side of the journey. There's always two sides to everything, like you say, but sometimes we're only focusing on the negative, or on what, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? We'll only focus on what maybe suits our agenda at the time, like, oh, it's not as good. When I'm doing muscle gain, I'm feeling fat, or I'm feeling like I'm getting softer, or I don't look as good. But then you'll say to someone, oh, well, how are you feeling in the gym? And they're like, oh, I feel fucking mint. I'm the best I've ever felt. I'm so much stronger. I can contract the muscle harder. I'm enjoying my sessions more. And it's like, well, what do you want? And then, they'll forget that in a fat loss phase, they'll be saying things like, I feel really fatigued today. I didn't feel very good in the gym. I'm not enjoying my sessions as much anymore. And it's like, no, well, that's also part of fat loss. And then in that sense, you say, but how did you look? And they'll go, oh, I look mint. I'm starting to see more striations. So there's always two sides to it. And tying it all together before we finish off is that this is why meditation, mindfulness, having this practice, I think is so important. It's helped me, because you're very much more just in the here and now, and you have instead of getting distracted by that thought in the mirror, or this event at work, or a gym session, or someone annoying you, or whatever it is, family, friends, instead of that taking up so much energy and time of your day, you've got the potential to pause it, step back and say, what's both sides to this? What's the good? What's the bad? And then you don't react, and you can just be much happier and much more present, and you can say, oh, it's just is just what it is, and you can just get on with your day. So
Yeah.
it all ties in fantastically. So yeah,
I think there's another element to it, and it just occurred to me, and so it's not fully formed, but I think any goal is it teaches you about yourself. So there's more self-awareness, but it develops your character, for want of a better word. You know, if you're working on any project and business, body, your finances, or your relationships, it shows you who you are and how you can be better. Yeah. And so perhaps it's not reaching that goal, but it is indeed the journey. The things that you learned on the way means that you develop, you become the person you could have been.
Yes.
You know, and because it's a step-by-step thing, it's very, very difficult to measure. It's very, very difficult to look back and go, unless you walk through a situation where you would have freaked out and just behaved terribly, you walk through that same situation and go, man, I did good in that. You know, you get an appreciation there. But really, when you're developing your character, so to speak, it's very difficult to measure. But I think perhaps achieving goals, whatever goals, external goals, is all about the internal journey as well, that you become a better human, a better version of you. You become more heroic, perhaps.
That's what it's all about. You're right. It is. It's about being better, that year-on-year progression. I think that's what we're all here for, really. Whenever at some point, I think most people realize that, and that's when they get into this kind of stuff, I guess. So awesome.
And so that's what I suggest people do, is everybody writes a to-do list. You know, they prioritize and say, well, this needs to be done today, and they shuffle, and these are my goals, and this is what I need to do today to reach the but write a to-be list as well. A sense of, you know, what is it? How do I want to do the things? Do I want to crush and damage and destroy the opposition? Do I want to burn down my relationship so I can solely focus on this one thing? Or what kind of human do I want to be? What kind of being? And I think when we plan for that, it's much more front and center of our attention, so that when we hit the difficult moments, we go, oh, hang on, that's right. I said myself this morning that enthusiasm, kindness, compassion, courage were important. So this is going to feel a bit awkward, but I'm going to attempt to say or have this conversation with this person.
Brilliant.
Whatever it may be.
I love that. That's really good. So ask yourself who you want to be. That's really good.
Yeah. And then you have a chance of being them.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people do that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. We've got 8 quick fire questions to finish off. 4 are easy.
Oh, crikey.
4 are a little bit harder. Just what you said. I'll give you a little bit of, and just think, first thing that comes into your head, you can take as long as you like or as short as I answer. They will get like longer answers as we get closer to the end.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Burgers or pizza?
Oh, man. Oh, geez. Burgers. That's a tough one.
It's a good, there's some hard to me. Tea or coffee?
Well, coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
It's a good answer. This is one very specific. You meditate or gym or train?
Oh, man. You see, I have to say meditation, because that's what I do. But you know what? If I haven't been to the gym for a long while, I'll flip out a gym session for meditation.
Yeah. I noticed when I was flicking through the books, and I'm big on as well, and the people that no doubt have listened to us ramble on over the years on this as well, you've got a lot of cool quotes in the book. So I wanted to ask either Stoicism or Buddhism in terms of your favorite quotes.
Or Stoicism, because I can understand them.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite? Give her one. Put you on the spot.
Favorite Stoic?
Yeah.
I heard one this morning. The world is change. Everything is opinion. Something like that.
Yeah, they're brilliant on that. I really enjoy. I've enjoyed the last couple of years getting into it and reading them, and Marcus Aurelius and all the different people in Seneca and stuff, and having a read. I try to share them, whether anyone's interested. I try to share them in my emails and videos. Sometimes I'm like, this is a quote that I've learned today. It's class, and I think they give you some really good teachings.
They are. I mean, for something so long ago, and I mean, they have a lot of, you know, wisdom is wisdom, no matter where it pops up. But someone was explaining to me that they, especially Marcus Aurelius, tried to condense them into as few words as possible so he could remember them.
Yeah, that's cool.
Hence brilliant. That one, I've got it. The universe is change and life is opinion, you know.
Awesome.
What can you control? Your opinion.
That's it. Next, worst place visited.
The worst place visited. Well, it would be tie up between the small town I used to live in, very small town I used to live in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably 50 years backwards. Just because it was the coldest place. The house I was living in was freezing cold, and it leaked, and it was just horrendous.
Yeah.
And just a place in India that I went there, there was just rubbish stacked up on the side. There was human feces there. There was just when people don't take care of themselves, when they only take care of themselves, when it looked like they weren't taking care of their environment.
Right.
I was like, man, this is the end result of only me. I can only look after me. I was guessing.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of beautiful places in India, but there was just this one place I was just like, man, this is poo,
bad.
Rubbish, and diseased people on the streets. No one's looking after them. I was like, wow, that's tough.
The other side of that, then, you can probably guess what the next one is. What's the best place you've ever visited?
Ooh. Do you know what? I had an amazing couple of weeks kayaking in Austria.
Okay.
And just sunshine, snow-capped mountains, great food, great people, great kayaking. It was incredible. But anywhere with great nature, great food, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's a big thing for you. Awesome. What is the worst piece of advice you have ever had? The worst. Or I'll give people a little bit of, because this is quite a hard one. People seem to struggle with this one. Or it could be a piece of advice you hear commonly repeated that you just categorically don't agree with.
Mm. Gee, that's a tough one because I think it might be. Well, it's not a piece of advice, but it was more me coming to realize that in terms of me teaching people, I needed to be myself. I couldn't, if I was trying to present an image or trying to be a certain way, like some people were suggesting, or I thought they were suggesting I do, then it would just fall short because my heart wouldn't be in it. The people listening wouldn't get it. Do you know, it was, it was the kind of advice that says you need to develop yourself so that you be like X, Y, or Z expert.
Yeah.
You know, and I put a lot of value in experts, but trying to be like the experts.
So trying to mimic or imitate experts,
that's
their content, their style is never a good way to go. No matter how successful they are, it's worked for them, but you'll never do a good job of copying other people.
Yeah, and you see it on social media. Well, I see it on social media. People just trying to be somebody else, and it's like, dude, just let me know who you are.
Yeah. And then lastly, Arjuna, the last question of what's been a fantastic episode. The best piece of advice. So what's the best?
You know, it was in my first book, and it's not really advice, but it was a quote, and it said, when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live a life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. I think that in terms of advice, and my good buddy actually, when I was having children, I said, I know nothing about children. What do I do? And he said, you know what? Best thing you can do is just get good at saying sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like,
fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is good. I love that one about the world. That's brilliant. Awesome, mate. I've really, really enjoyed this. This has been fantastic. And I'm sure that the lads listening, watching, whatever they're on, I'm sure that they've enjoyed the episode. I will leave all of Arjuna's information in the comments and links below. Arjuna, is there anything you want to say? Website, the book, what's the dates? Do you want to give everyone your details before we go?
Yeah. Well, before I'm feeling a little bit guilty about slagging off that village in India.
That's what, this is a true, do you know what's funny? So I always ask, the last 4 questions are always the same, because from my point of view, I like to know where's good, where's bad. So when I can hopefully get traveling again, I've got some cool new places I've heard of. And my good friend Blaine, he is in New Zealand, and he mentioned Grimsby being one of the worst places. And this is hilarious. So anyone who hasn't listened to Blaine's episode, go back and listen to it. He said Grimsby was the worst place he's ever been. And then since then, Grimsby Town Football Club have been looking at him on LinkedIn, because you can see who's looking at you. And he's a strength and conditioning coach, and he thinks that someone heard it. And then someone from the football club's been checking out his LinkedIn page. Whether it's a coincidence or not, it's funny that it's the same town.
He's being stalked.
Yeah, so you might get some new followers from India, from this town, coming to have a look at your stuff.
Don't get me wrong, I loved India. It was just this one place where maybe, it all came together. I was like, holy cow, this is a mess.
Yeah, well, there's got to be a worse place. So your details, Arjuna, website, book, social media handles, go.
Yeah, if people want I email people once a week, and it's arjunaishaya.com/free stuff. And you'll find bits and bobs there. My new book's coming out probably, I'm just doing the cover at the moment with the publisher, so probably July at this stage, which I'm super excited about. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and if you need anything, just hit me up. I'd love to help.
Brilliant. I'll put the links in below. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome.
You've been listening to Aesthetically Trained, the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread the word.